television as it is.
President Buhari's family moves to Glass House at Presidential Villa in Abuja ahead of May 29th inauguration. Labour Party distances Peter Obi from allegations of postponement of May 29th inauguration. More military officers appear before Human Rights Panel over mass abortion allegation. On the foreign scene, court grants 2 weeks bail to former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan. Good evening. This is News at 7 on Western Spring Television. My name is Tunde Idowu. President Muhammadu Buhari and his family have moved into the Glass House at the Presidential Villa in Abuja ahead of the inauguration of the President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu. This was disclosed by the First Lady Aisha Buhari via a video shared on her official Instagram page after taking the incoming First Lady Oluremi Tinubu around the State House. During the tour of the villa, Mrs. Buhari introduced Senator Tinubu to the various areas of the house, providing detailed explanations regarding the history and importance of each edifice. According to the First Lady, the Glass House has served as a transitional abode for the outgoing president and their spouse during the transition period. The leadership of the Labour Party has distanced its presidential candidate, Peter Obi, from allegation that he called for the postponement of May 29th inauguration ceremony for the swearing-in of the president-elect Bola Tinubu. The rebuttal was issued in Abuja by the party's acting National Publicity Secretary, Obiora Ifor. It will be recalled that the Lamidi Apapa-led faction of Labour Party has disclosed that his camp was not among the party members calling for a shift in Tinubu's swearing-in, pending the determination of the petition before the Presidential Election Tribunal sitting in Abuja. Lamidi, who spoke through the faction's image maker, Abayomi Arabambi, posted that the Electoral Act and the Constitution of Nigeria did not give room for a vacuum. Reacting to his claim in a statement, Ifor denied that his principal never raised such issues, whether in a private or public conversation. 5 residents of the Federal Capital Territory have sued the Attorney General of the Federation and the Chief Justice of Nigeria over the inauguration of Bola Tinubu as the nation's president. The standard bearer of the All Progressive Congress, Tinubu, was declared the February 25th presidential poll winner with over 8 million votes. The plaintiffs, who sued for themselves and on behalf of other residents and registered voters in the FCT, are asking the court to determine whether or not the administrator of the FCT through the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory and the Federal Capital Territory Development Authority on the first ballot is required by the Constitution to obtain at least 25% of the votes cast in the FCT. They also want a declaration extending President Muhammadu Buhari's tenure pending when a successor is determined in accordance with the Constitution. Meanwhile, the Independent National Electoral Commission has said a candidate must not secure 25% of the votes in the FCT to be declared winner because the FCT was not accorded any special status in the Constitution as being erroneously portrayed. Still staying with politics, the High Court of the FCT has assumed jurisdiction in the suit filed by the Publicity Secretary of the Labour Party, Yomi Arabambi, loyal to the party's suspended Deputy National Chairman Lamidi Apapa, and 7 others against the National Chairman Julius Abure and 3 others. Justice Hamza Muazu stated this today while ruling on the preliminary objection filed by Abure and the National Secretary Farouk Umar Ibrahim, challenging the jurisdiction of the court to entertain the matter. The suit is based on the order restraining Abure and Ibrahim, National Organizing Secretary Oluchi Okpara, and National Treasurer Clement Ojukwu from parading themselves as leaders of the Labour Party. The order is pending the hearing of a suit seeking, among others, their sack over allegations of forged court documents, including receipts, and the seal of the FCT High Court, which they were said to have used in the substitution of Labour Party's candidate in the 2023 general elections. At today's hearing of the matter, the judge adjourned the case to May 17th for hearing on the substantive suit, saying Abure and 3 others remain suspended pending the outcome of the suits. To security matters, more testimonies have continued to be heard from the military, even as the Special Independent Investigative Panel probes into the alleged human rights violations by officers of the armed forces during counterinsurgency operations in the Northeast. At its resumed hearing today, the Chief of Staff of the Nigerian Army Armor Corps Headquarters, Bauchi, and former Garrison Commander, 7th Division Garrison Maiduguri, Brigadier General Haruna Garba, testified before the 7-man panel led by a former Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Abdul Aboki. Brigadier Garba denied an allegation by Reuters suggesting that the military has over a decade carried out mass abortion in the Northeast as part of plans to annihilate the offspring of Boko Haram fighters. A former theater commander of the Nigerian Army in Maiduguri, retired Major General Hassan Umar, says he is pained listening to Reuters' allegations against the Nigerian Army. Reuters reported in 2022 that the Nigerian military, through a clandestine operation, terminated 10,000 pregnancies of women who were either rescued from Boko Haram fighters or married to them, and that the military carried out a massacre of children in the Northeast.
The 7th medical team to such location. Actually, the analysis you have given, I feel very pained. It's really a touching situation. But while in the theater of operation, either as the GOC 3 Division or as the theater commander, there was never a time we experienced what you have analyzed. There was never a time. But I know it's a very painful situation. The Nigerian Army, from the onset, even from the training, the Nigerian Army is designed to assist whosoever falls victim in a war situation. So I cannot imagine under my command troops or myself giving orders that this type of ugly situations should happen. I am not aware of it, and there was never a time we discussed either in a conference or any side meeting. Normally, when we sit down with our
Operatives of the Delta State Police Command have foiled an attempted kidnap by a suspected kidnapper who is also said to be an armed robber. The Delta Police Command's Public Relations Officer, DSP Bright Adafe, while confirming the incident, disclosed that the suspect and exhibits were in custody just as investigation is ongoing. During preliminary investigation, the suspect confessed that he belongs to the notorious Eye Confraternity cult group and that his syndicate has been terrorizing Warri and Ughelli axis. He also confessed to being a member of an armed robbery kidnapping gang, and his gang leader is one David Ohotomo Matthew, also known as Cucumber. The PPRO confirmed that when the operatives searched the bag, one pump-action gun loaded with 2 live cartridges and 49 rounds of 7.62 mm live ammunition were recovered along with the motorcycle. Elsewhere, 8 internet fraudsters have been convicted by the Federal Capital Territory High Court, Abuja. 5 of the convicts, Emmanuel Ugochukwu Matthias, and Aderele Adekunle Abdullahi Adebola Ainde, and Matthew Ushe, were prosecuted before Justice Nwechunu of the FCT High Court, Kuje, on 1-count charge each. Ugochukwu, who pretended to be Nopsuk Dennis, defrauded 1 yen train via the Facebook platform. Ugochukwu pretended to be Arjun Sharma on Instagram and defrauded unsuspecting females of the sum of $400. Aderele, pretending to be One Finalisa, the daughter of one Lee Bruce, a contractor from Hong Kong, obtained about 200,000 naira, while Abdullahi created an Instagram account in the name of an American actor, Tom Cruise, and in that assumed character obtained the sum of $80 from a Norwegian citizen. In Bayelsa State, the state government has frowned at the alleged demolition of its properties and eviction of its workers by the Rivers State government. It cited that a sister state issues between the states can be amicably resolved without recourse to demolition of the properties at number 5 and 9 Akasa Street, Old GRA, Port Harcourt. According to Bayelsa State Commissioner for Land and Housing, Andrew Iswa, both governors had discussed in 2021 when the Rivers State government first served the Bayelsa State government the notice for immediate renovation of the property and other subsequent notifications. He lamented that the demolition of the properties should not have occurred, as both states are sister states and have a long history of cordial relations, adding that this could be amicably resolved without recourse to demolition. In Ondo State, a magistrate court in Osi has sentenced a monarch of the Ode community in Akure North local government area of the state, Oba Adewale Boboye, for unlawfully demolishing some palm trees and food crops. The properties destroyed were said to have belonged to the Apostolic Church located along Ado-Ekiti Road, Igboba, in Akure. He was then charged to court and arraigned before the court on 6-count bordering on felony, to wit malicious damage. The prosecutor, Sergeant Ajiboye Babatunde, told the court that the convict and others at large at the pastorate and laity of the Apostolic Church in Nigeria along Ado-Ekiti Road, Igboba, Akure North, conspired to commit felony. He also informed the court that the convict unlawfully demolished the perimeter fence of the pastorate and laity of the church valued at about 1 million naira, demolished the palm trees and food crops valued at about 5 million naira, and demolished the signposts of the church. He added that the convict, when arrested, could not give a satisfactory account to the police. However, the monarch, through his counsel, Adiola Kayode, denied the allegations leveled against him and urged the court to temper justice with mercy. You're watching News at 7 on Western Spring Television. Still to come, President Buhari inaugurates 6th Tertiary Education Trust Fund worth about 1 billion naira in 3 universities in Ekiti State. We'll bring you more on this when we return.
Ajibolaige was a lawyer who obtained his first degree in classics from Nigeria's premier University of Ibadan. Born September 13, 1930, the orator and the polyglot spoke impeccable English, French, Igbo, Hausa, and Yoruba languages. His fine diction placed him among classical orators and public speakers like Cicero, the Roman orator. This attribute earned him the prefix Cicero of Esauke. He authored Kaduna Boy, an autobiography, The Teenage Diary, Constitution, and the People, among 6 other books. Bolaige was a colorful politician, elected governor of Oyo State in 1979 and appointed a federal minister in 1999. He was a pioneer founder of Afenifere, the Yoruba social, cultural, and political group. He invested his political sagacity to propel the group to the height of political leadership and decision-making in the southwest of Nigeria. Bolaige was assassinated on the 23rd December 2001. His murderers are yet to be apprehended till today. Western Spring Television identifies Bolaige as a watershed character in history. Named Mao Zedong at birth, but globally known as Mao Zedong, he was a Chinese revolutionary and founder, People's Republic of China, which he led as chairman of the Chinese Communist Party from 1949 until his death in 1976. He was a communist who believed in the attainment of power by the instrumentality of gun. His wise saying, "Political power grows out of the barrel of gun," formed the major plank of its revolutionary struggle for the control of China. In the long span of his leadership and political power, Mao Zedong relentlessly entrenched the communist philosophy in China, which emphasized the revolutionary struggle of the vast majority of people against the exploiting class and their state structures. The communist leaders defined the class struggle as people's war. Mao Zedong was a story of grass to grace, having risen from peasantry to preeminent status as China's most respected leader. Western Spring Television identifies Mao Zedong as a major character in history.
Welcome back. This is still News at 7 on Western Spring Television. A reminder of our headlines. President Muhammadu Buhari and his family have moved into the glass house at the presidential villa in Abuja ahead of the inauguration of the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The leadership of the Labour Party has distanced its presidential candidate Peter Obi from allegation that he called for the postponement of May 29th inauguration ceremony for the swearing-in of the president-elect Bola Tinubu. More testimonies have continued to be heard from the military, even as the Special Independent Investigative Panel probes into the alleged human rights violations by officers of the armed forces during counter-insurgency operations in the Northeast. On the foreign scene, a court has granted a 2-week bail to former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, who was arrested earlier this week. The Director, Legal Department, Federal Ministry of Information and Culture, Nelson Orji, has said the judgment of the Federal High Court, Abuja, which stopped the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation from imposing fines on airing broadcast stations, is ill-conceived and dead on arrival because of legal encumbrances. Orji told journalists that a Federal High Court, also sitting in Abuja, had earlier given a contrary decision that the NBC had the power to impose sanctions on airing stations. He said Justice N.E. Maha in April 2022 had ruled in the case brought against NBC by 7 organizations led by the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP. Relying on the provisions of the law, the Justice Maha held the law is settled that a regulator imposing fines under its enabling law in the discharge of its functions could not have acted unconstitutionally. Speaking on the 2 cases, Orji said there existed conflicting decisions of the same court of coordinate jurisdictions on the same issues of whether NBC can impose sanctions. Turning to some education news, President Muhammadu Buhari has inaugurated 6 tertiary education trust fund projects worth about 1 billion naira to boost teaching and learning in 3 universities in Ekiti State. Beneficiaries of the project are the Bamidele Olumilua University of Education, Science and Technology Ikare Ekiti, Ekiti State University, Ado Ekiti, and Federal University, Oye Ekiti. Buhari, represented by the Minister of Industry and Trade, Adini Adebayo, during the inauguration of the projects at Ikare Ekiti, Ado Ekiti, and Oye Ekiti, said the commissioning of the projects will, in no small measure, further enhance teaching and learning and improvement of academic standards. The president said TETFund, through federal government support, had performed exceptionally in infrastructure provision and support for academic staff training and development, amongst others, to tertiary institutions. According to the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocation Commission, the president, his deputy, governors, and their deputies are entitled to hardship allowance annually within the period of their tenure. In this report, Olayinka Ale focuses on the amount allocated to each of them and the trade union's reaction to it.
The President, Muhammadu Buhari, his deputy, Yemi Osinbajo, state governors and deputies may have enjoyed about 651.2 million naira hardship allowance in the last 8 years under the Buhari regime, as many Nigerians continue to wallow in hardship. This type of allowance, which is 50% of the annual basic salary, is also enjoyed by judges in Nigeria. This report focuses on the amounts allocated for the President, Vice President, state governors, and the deputies, according to a document obtained from the website of the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocation Commission. The RMAFC document disclosed that the President is entitled to 1.76 million naira annually as hardship allowance. This means that within a period of 8 years, Buhari would have earned 14.8 million naira as hardship allowance. The Vice President is entitled to 1.52 million naira annually, which means that in 8 years, Osinbajo would have earned 12.16 million naira as a cheap allowance, while a state governor is entitled to 1.11 million naira annually. A deputy state governor is entitled to 1.6 million naira. In 8 years, the hardship allowance of the 36 state governors would have gobbled 319.68 million naira, while that of the deputies would have gobbled 305.28 million naira. As Buhari spends his last days in office, labor unions called the regime low, saying they pauperized workers and inflicted hardship on Nigerians. They lamented the galloping inflation in the country, which they said have eroded the 40% pay rise recently approved by the federal government with effect from January. The Nigeria Labour Congress NLC Caretaker Committee chairperson of the Osun State Council
I can tell you, the income of the worker, the inflation.
The chairman, Adebowale Adekola, scored the Buhari regime low in the areas of workers' welfare and well-being. He pointed out that the high cost of living had made nonsense of the minimum wage.
Honestly, without missing word, I want to say it from every consideration that the administration of Major General Muhammadu Buhari retired is not workers friendly. From all angles of his policy, from all angles of policy, his decisions, his administration is anti-workers. If you can recollect, in the last 1 or 2 months ago, there's this cash crunch. Everything, every decision, every move of Buhari administration is anti-workers. Today, when he was voted in as a president, the exchange rate, I think it's still 250. But today, I want to say it is between 850 and 1,000 naira. And then we are collecting salary of an average workers in Nigeria. How much are we collecting? We are collecting salary that cannot take us to our home again. Our take home cannot take us to anywhere. Our take home cannot feed even someone that are rearing dogs, someone that are rearing goats. Our take home cannot feed them, which is, I wanted to say without missing word that his policy is anti. His policy is not friendly. His policy, we as a workers in Nigeria, we are not praying to have such administration again.
Recently, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, said Nigerians would not die but will adjust to the economic hardships in the country. In a statement, the minister noted that economic hardships were not peculiar to Nigeria alone, but to the world at large. Also noted that the agitation by workers for more wages was not peculiar to Nigeria. Olayinka Ali, Western Spring Television News.
President Muhammadu Buhari has congratulated the Osun State Governor, Ademola Adeleke, as he celebrates his 63rd birthday tomorrow, urging him to seek God to deliver on his mandate. The president's congratulatory message was issued by his spokesman Femi Adesina today in Abuja. Buhari affirmed that Adeleke had solidified his base and gradually built a formidable network of friends and political allies that had helped his many victories, including leading one of the 36 states in the country. The president believed that Adeleke's easygoing outlook on life had turned into an asset with a huge following that cuts across all ages. He urged the governor, whose victory was recently validated by the Supreme Court, to place the interest of the state and the welfare of the people above all else and seek God's guidance to deliver on his mandate. On the foreign scene, a court has granted a 2-week bail to former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, who was arrested earlier this week. The Islamabad High Court this morning granted the bail to the country's main opposition leader, who was arrested by the country's National Accountability Bureau on Tuesday. Meanwhile, supporters of Mr. Khan clashed with police elsewhere in the city as the former premier appeared in court today. Mr. Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party had said thousands of peaceful Pakistanis will gather in Islamabad in solidarity with their leader. His arrest earlier this week, which sparked daily unrest in the nuclear-armed nation, was ruled invalid and unlawful by the Supreme Court yesterday. British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch has been extradited to the U.S. to face criminal charges over the $11 billion sale of his firm Autonomy to Hewlett-Packard. Dr. Lynch, once named Britain's Bill Gates after the Microsoft co-founder, will stand trial on charges including fraud, which he denies. He is accused of overinflating the value of his software firm when he sold it to HP in 2011. The Home Office confirmed that Dr. Lynch was extradited to the U.S. on Thursday. The billionaire businessman, who is a founding investor in the UK cybersecurity firm Darktrace, has long fought attempts by U.S. prosecutors to stand trial in America. According to U.S. court documents, Dr. Lynch has been ordered to pay bail of $100 million, with authorities claiming he is a serious risk of flight following his years of fighting extradition. A former U.S. Marine who placed another passenger in a fatal chokehold on the New York subway has surrendered to police to face a manslaughter charge. 24-year-old Daniel Penny is accused of causing the death of 30-year-old Jordan Nelly on the 1st of May. His lawyer said he could not have known his actions to subdue Nelly would lead to his death. Nelly, who was homeless, was pinned to the ground and restrained for several minutes on the train carriage. Penny was questioned by police on the day of the incident and then released, but footage of the altercation on an F train filmed by a bystander set up protests, and the Manhattan District Attorney's Office launched an investigation. Today, Penny arrived in a black SUV at a police station in Manhattan. A man has been found guilty of murdering a 7-year-old girl more than 30 years ago in Sunderland. Nikki Allen was lured to her brutal death in a derelict warehouse 300 yards from her family's home in the city's East End in 1992. After a trial at Newcastle Crown Court, neighbor David Boyd was found guilty of murdering Nikki, who was attacked with a brick and stabbed 37 times in the chest before she was dumped dead or dying in the basement of the old Exchange building. Cheers could be heard from the public gallery as family members hugged when the verdict came in.
David Boyd hid his crime, lying about his involvement and prolonging the family's suffering knowing all along that he had taken the life of their little girl. The investigation into Nikki's murder has been one of the most complex and comprehensive ever conducted by Northumbria Police.
Nikki Allen would have been 37 now, and who knows what her life could have been. Her future was cruelly taken by David Boyd, who today has been convicted of her murder. The pain and suffering that he has caused, and to so many people, is immeasurable. This is a huge day for Nikki's family, and I would like to thank them for their incredible strength. After 30 years, finally, they have justice.
As the United States today ended the COVID-19 border restrictions that had blocked many migrants at the border with Mexico, the country faces a great surge in the number of migrants at her southern borders. In this report, Daniel Odemi takes a look at the new regulations replacing the old order known as Title 42 as the U.S. tries to deter illegal crossings.
Let me be clear. The lifting of the Title 42 public health order does not mean our border is open. In fact, it is the contrary.
We've just seen some images from Texas showing Texas National Guard and DPS physically blocking migrants from climbing up the riverbanks and accessing U.S. soil. Does the department believe that that's a legal enforcement posture by the state of Texas?
Nick, I'm going to leave it to our Department of Justice to speak to the lawfulness or lack thereof of those actions.
South Africans were left angry and baffled today after the United States accused their country of secretly shipping arms to Russia, a charge that triggered both a government rebuke but also the announcement of an inquiry. U.S. Ambassador Robin Brigitte on Thursday said Washington
Americans' concerns are misplaced.
Had been laden onto a Russian freighter that docked at a Cape Town naval base. The explosive remarks drew an angry response from President Cyril Ramaphosa, who, however, did not deny the charge but said a retired judge will lead an investigation into the matter. The move was welcomed by the United States but met with a mix of ridicule at home, with many questioning how the government could not have known what had happened.
Americans' concerns are misplaced. The current government has got no capacity to empower Russians with weapons against their own handlers. And that the concerns of America in relation to South Africa's posture in the war between Russia and Ukraine, it's unfounded. We've got a long-standing relationship with Russia when it was still under the Soviet Union, and that Russia has helped us to be where we are, and that will not be dictated to by USA in terms of who becomes our friends. But I don't think there's anything that we should be worried about. There's no one with such capacity in South Africa who can supply Russia with weapons. If anything, it is the other way around. And therefore, if the president says he's going to investigate, we'll hear what the outcomes are. But America is just becoming a crybaby, trying to find a way into punishing South Africa because of our position on the Russia-Ukraine war.
And still ahead, Elon Musk names new chief executive of Twitter. We have more on this and other business stories after this break. Please stay with us.
16th September 1923, named Harry Lee Kuan and known as Lee Kuan Yew, he was often addressed by his initials of LKY. Lee Kuan Yew was a barrister and the first Prime Minister of Singapore between 1959 and 1990. Educated at Raffles Institution from 1936 to 1940 and the Fitzwilliam House between 1947 and 1949, Lee Kuan Yew established a highly effective and anti-corrupt governance system that midwives the transformation of Singapore into a high net worth income economy within a generation. He never hid his exception to Western mode democratic ideal, which he believed had not assisted developing nations to attain good government. Before his death on 23rd March 2015, the People's Action Party, which he founded, had used its political influence to establish the United World College of Southeast Asia to expand his economic ideas among countries that constitute the Asian Tiger. Western Spring Television identifies Lee Kuan Yew as a major character in history. Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker, and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
You're welcome back. Now to some business stories. Nigerians have reacted to $800 million loan President Muhammadu Buhari asked the Senate to approve in financing the National Social Safety Network program. They insisted that the loan was not necessary, especially as the president is rounding off his tenure. Olayinka Ali takes the story from here.
President Muhammadu Buhari on Wednesday sought Senate approval for $800 million loan to finance the National Social Safety Network program. The request was contained in a letter read by the President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, to lawmakers on the floor of the Senate. The letter read that the Federal Executive Council approved an additional loan facility to the tune of $800 million to be secured from the World Bank, and there was a need to request for consideration and approval to ensure early implementation. The presidency said it is important to note that the program is intended to expand coverage of shock-responsive safety net support among the poor and vulnerable Nigerians, which will assist them in coping with the cost of meeting basic needs. Buhari stated that the federal government of Nigeria, under the conditional cash transfer window of the program, will transfer the sum of 5,000 naira per month to 10.2 million poor and low-income households for a period of 6 months, with a multiplier effect on about 60 million individuals. He said in order to guarantee the credibility of the process, digital transfers will be made directly to beneficiaries' accounts and mobile wallet. Nigerians have, however, reacted to this recent development, saying Buhari has no good intent by borrowing such money in less than 3 weeks of him leaving office. A chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, APC, in Eden North local government area of Osun State, Azim Adebowale, said it is not a right act for the outgoing president to request for such a loan, especially as his tenure is almost over. Hazim believes that the loan as requested by the president is a take-home grant and a test of sincerity to the lawmakers.
Requesting for a loan of $800 million this time around is not proper in any way. Nigeria has been indebted to the tune of 77 trillion already, with little or no significance of it, with little or nothing to show for it. It has not been impacted on the citizenry. Why is he requesting for another loan, especially this time that his tenure is almost lapsed? I think it is a test of sincerity to the lawmakers. They shouldn't grant this. I don't want to see that as a loan. To me, I want to see it as a take-home grant.
The trio of Oladejo Moruf, Bukola Pukwala, and Samuel Adebowale also disagree with the president's request from the Senate because they believe he wants to create problems for the incoming administration, which they believe will increase the loan the country is servicing.
No, it's not right. And I believe if we estimate it to Naira, it's more like almost like 50 or something billion Naira. And him want to get that loan during his last tenure. I believe it's for his own selfish gain. He shouldn't be able to do that. And if I think I believe wants to cause problems for the present government that wants to come in, because by collecting that money, we add more loans to what is currently on grant, and that will put Nigeria in a very negative something. And even I think in the World Bank, I think actually they are kind of very reluctant to borrow this type of money to us. So I think it's very, very unfair to this thing.
It's not right. Talking about the current situation in Nigeria, you know what is going on? Everybody are suffering. No job, nothing, and someone is still behind somewhere and still requesting for loan in this same Nigeria. That is wrong. That's totally wrong.
If I'll be able to advise the president, I'll advise him, or should I say he doesn't have good advisors, because it's not a good thing for Nigeria. We are in debt already, so getting more debt for the country is not a good thing. So he shouldn't go for any loan at all.
Meanwhile, report says that Nigeria's borrowing from the World Bank had reached $14.34 billion as of March 31, 2023. This was an increase from the $13.93 billion debt recovered by the Debt Management Office as of December 31, 2022. This means that fresh disbursements on approved loans added $410 million to Nigeria's debt from the World Bank in the first quarter of 2023. Olayinka Ali, Western Spring Television News.
Elon Musk has named a new chief executive of Twitter just over 6 months after his controversial takeover of the social media company. The billionaire said Linda Yaccarino, the former head of advertising at NBC Universal, will oversee business operations at the site, which has been struggling to make money. He said she will start in 6 weeks. Mr. Musk will remain involved as executive chairman and chief technology officer. Mr. Musk, who bought the social media platform last year for $44 billion, had been under pressure to find someone else to lead the company and refocus its attention on other businesses, which include electric car maker Tesla and rocket firm SpaceX. At NBC Universal, Yaccarino oversaw roughly 2,000 people and was involved with the launch of its streaming service. The United Kingdom grew only weakly in the first 3 months of the year, with the economy hit by strikes, cost of living pressures, and wet weathers. Figures showed the economy grew by just 0.1% between January and March, and it remains smaller than levels seen before the COVID pandemic. The UK is also lagging behind growth seen in other major economies. On Thursday, the Bank of England said it was more optimistic about prospects and the UK will avoid a recession. Its comment came after the bank increased interest rates to 4.5% from 4.25% as part of its continued attempt to slow soaring prices, while the UK outperformed Germany in the first 3 months of the year, many other major economies grew faster. However, Chancellor Jeremy Hunt says the government is prepared to talk about anything except for measures that will entrench high inflation in order to resolve industrial action.
We want to resolve the public sector strikes as quickly as we can. We're prepared to be completely reasonable. We will talk about anything except measures that will entrench high inflation, because the root cause of the anger of the people who are striking at the moment is that the cost of their weekly shop has gone up by more than their salary, and we don't want to be here in a year's time having the same discussion. So it is challenging for everyone as we see when interest rates go up. But it's the right thing to do, because if we bring down inflation, we can restore the value of people's pay packets and stop people having to worry about prices going up.
To some sports stories. David Moyes says there is a good chance that in-demand Declan Rice will leave West Ham in the summer transfer window, admitting the club are making contingency plans. Arsenal, Chelsea and Manchester United are all understood to be interested in the England midfielder, who is valued at around $125 million. Moyes has been unable to formulate plans for next season, while West Ham's Premier League status remains unclear. Although last week's win over Manchester United has left them all but safe, West Ham, who are 7 points above the relegation zone, head to Brentford on Sunday on the back of Thursday's 2-1 win over AZ Alkmaar in the first leg of their Europa Conference League semi-final.
We honestly hope that Dec stays. That's the biggest thing. We would love Declan to be a West Ham player, but we are aware that that might not be the case come the end of the season. So that's one of the scenarios which is you talk about planning. Our plans are that. So a lot of the planning will only be started going into place once we realise that we've kept our Premier League place. So we're obviously watching a lot of players, we're watching a lot of games, we're doing a lot of scouting, we're looking at what we're going to do. But the truth is, the only focus has been on the games at the moment and staying in the Premier League.
Pep Guardiola says he does not understand the scheduling of Manchester City's fixtures, but is beyond fighting against it. Premier League leaders City face Everton at Goodison Park on Sunday, little more than 72 hours before they take on Real Madrid in the second leg of their Champions League semi-final. Real are in La Liga action against Getafe on Saturday and therefore have an extra day's rest. Guardiola, speaking ahead of the game, said it is what it is, adding that he doesn't understand it, but he was not going to fight it anymore. Sunday's trip to Merseyside is a crucial match at both ends of the Premier League, with City looking to maintain their lead over Arsenal at the top and 17th placed Everton battling to avoid relegation.
I thought it's just Everton, no more than that. So it's 11 months working for the Premier League. I don't want to be distracted for Madrid because I will have time, but not much time because we play Sunday. Thank you so much. But anyway, so it's a real priority in the game in Goodison Park.
Manchester United manager Erik ten Hag says English forward Marcus Rashford is unlikely to feature against Wolves. The Red Devils welcome Wolverhampton Wanderers to Old Trafford on Saturday. The United boss disclosed that the club's highest goal scorer had a problem with his leg and was doubtful to feature tomorrow. Ten Hag further revealed that French defender Raphael Varane is available to play a part in tomorrow's game.
Yes, experience knows how to win and will lead how to win, will guide us. Rafa Varane is back and Rashford is doubtful. He has a problem, so injury on his leg, so he's a big question mark for tomorrow, but we are happy Rafa Varane is back.
Jurgen Klopp recalled past miracles today, but admitted Liverpool's destiny was not in their own hands as his red-hot team hunted down a top-4 finish in the Premier League. Last month, the Reds were in 8th place, 10 points behind 4th place Manchester United, but 6 successive victories have propelled them to 5th and only a point behind their fierce rivals who have a match in hand. Club, whose team have 3 games left, starting at relegation threatening Leicester on Monday, was reminded at his pre-match press conference of previous remarkable comebacks, including the overturning of a 3-0 first-leg defeat deficit to beat Barcelona in the Champions League semi-finals in 2019. Liverpool also came from a similarly impossible position in the Premier League in 2021 to qualify for the top 4, with goalkeeper Alisson Becker scoring a stoppage-time winner at West Brom in one of their games. And that's all at this hour, but before we go, here is a recap of our major stories. President Muhammadu Buhari and his family have moved into the glass house at the presidential villa in Abuja ahead of the inauguration of the president-elect, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The leadership of the Labour Party has distanced its presidential candidate, Peter Obi, from allegation that he called for the postponement of May 29th inauguration ceremony for the swearing-in of the president-elect, Bola Tinubu. And more testimonies have continued to be heard from the military, even as the Special Independent Investigative Panel probes into the alleged human rights violations by officers of the armed forces during counter-insurgency operations in the Northeast. On the foreign scene, a court has granted a 2-week bail to former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, who was arrested earlier this week. Please do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Tunde Idowu. Have yourself a splendid weekend.
nǹkan ló ń kojú àwọn ará àdúgbò àwọn ará àwùjọ tí ohun ò dẹ̀ dókè ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ìnira ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ìyà làwọn èèyàn ń kojú rẹ̀ ní àdúgbò ojú ọ̀nà tó kù díẹ̀ káàtó iná ọba tó mẹ́ẹ̀ tó ń ṣe ségesège àwọn tó ń hu ìwà àbàṣejẹ́ obì tí ń sun lẹ́rùn àti àwọn nǹkan tí ò tí ì dé tí gbọ́ ìjọba ṣé wọ́n ní etí ọba nílé etí ọba lóko èèyàn náà ló ń jẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ òun náà ló jẹ́ kí ìkànnì Western Spring Television pé ètò tí ó jẹ́ kẹ́yìn ara lé ẹ̀yin ará àwùjọ kẹ́lẹ́ mọ́ sọ bí tí bàtà bá ti ń tayé lẹ́sẹ̀ fún àwọn aláṣẹ ìjọba ohun tẹ́ ẹ ṣe ni wípé ẹ mú fóònù yín ẹ̀rọ ìbánisọ̀rọ̀ yín ẹ dábù rẹ̀ ẹ mọ̀ yà ní gbọ́rọ̀ ẹ dábù rẹ̀ ẹ ṣe àkàálẹ̀ ohun tó ń fẹ́ àmójútó ìjọba ohun tó ń fẹ́ àmójútó àwọn aláṣẹ ohun tó ń fẹ́ àmójútó àwọn elétò ìlera àwọn elétò ààbò àti àwọn míì tí ọ̀rọ̀ kàn ẹ má jẹ́ kí fọ́nrán náà ìyẹn fídíò tẹ́ máa ṣe àkálẹ̀ rẹ̀ kó mọ̀ ju ìṣẹ́jú 2 tàbí 3 lọ ẹ má fi ṣọwọ́ sí wa ní orí WhatsApp lórí ẹ̀rọ 0803 865